Motorsport loves a predictable origin story. Karting at 6, single-seaters by 14, a ladder you climb the right way. But every so often, the sport is confronted with a story it doesn't quite know how to process. A story that arrives from the side door and refuses to be ignored. This is that story. Meet Jann Mardenborough, a young British lad who, like many of us, is obsessed with racing and, like many of us, has no conventional motorsport pathway. No junior Formula scrapbook, no karting career written in the margins. The unfortunate truth is that motorsport is expensive. He did have a bedroom though. He also had a PlayStation and a copy of Gran Turismo. And the timing could not have been more uncomfortable for motorsport, because the early 2010s weren't just changing drivers, they were changing racing itself. GT racing in particular was shifting under our feet. Customer teams, manufacturer involvement, huge grids. Endurance racing was becoming global, accessible and brutally competitive again. GT3 wasn't a curiosity anymore. It was becoming a legitimate and exciting class of racing. And right at that moment, Nissan made a bet. What if the driver didn't come from a kart track, but from a simulator? What happens when a sim racer is thrown into a real race car, not as a gimmick or a marketing stunt, but as a genuine challenge to motorsport's deepest prejudice? This is the Forgotten Lap. Long before the headlines and the movie, before the gamer to racer tagline, Jann Mardenborough was just another kid obsessed with cars. British touring cars on TV, motorsport on weekends, the kind of fascination that settles in early and never really leaves. But he's spoken openly about the moment many fans recognise, the realisation that motorsport isn't just difficult, it's expensive. Loving it isn't always enough, and raw talent doesn't guarantee access. So, he raced where he could, in the sim. And in 2011, that obsession collided with a golden opportunity. Nissan and PlayStation launched GT Academy, a radical idea even then. The goal was to find the fastest Gran Turismo players in the world, and see if any of them could drive a real race car. That year, Jann won GT Academy Europe. He beat more than 90,000 entrants, and he earned a professional racing contract with Nissan. It was a viral moment, but it also created a problem, because motorsport didn't quite know where to file him. Was he a legitimate driver or a marketing experiment? And if he failed, the narrative wouldn't be Jann failed. It would be, see, gamers can't race. From the very first lap, Jann wasn't just driving for himself. He was driving for the legitimacy of an entire idea. His success or failure would shape the future landscape of motorsports. The reality check came quickly. Firstly, Jann had to undergo an extensive training program targeting his driving, fitness and even skills for dealing with the media. To gain his international driving license, he did a number of UK domestic club races and even serving as a marshal in one of them. Once complete, he was thrown into the Dubai 24-hour in a GT4 Spec 370Z. The team of drivers, consisting entirely of GT Academy alumni, claimed a podium finish in class. And then came the real test, GT3, British GT, RJN Motorsport with the Nissan GTR Nismo GT3. Now this matters because GT3 wasn't just the prize, it was the examination. The sim can teach you lines, but it can't teach you braking points, spatial awareness and racecraft under real world physics. There's heat, G-forces, fatigue and consequences. GT3 doesn't give you a polite racing experience, it throws traffic at you, tyre management, free wide into braking zones in the rain, headlights full of spray and nowhere to hide. And if a sim racer was ever going to be exposed, this is exactly where it would happen. Instead, Jann delivered. In his debut British GT season, he didn't just survive, he won. A victory at Brands Hatch up against a field that absolutely did not care where he came from, and slowly, quietly, something began to shift. Now, here comes the long part of the story, because this part would never fit into a headline. Turning interesting story into credible driver is slow work. It doesn't come with applause, it comes with repetition. In 2013, Jann competed in European and British Formula 3 while continuing to build his endurance racing credentials. That same year, he arrived at Le Mans, and on his debut in an LMP2 car no less, he finished third in class. He helped his team lead for 14 of the 24 hours. Highly impressive for a sim racer. He kept building too. GP3 in 2014 and 2015 featuring race wins and solid performances. There was a growing sense that the paddock was no longer humouring him. Opinions rarely convert dramatically, they shift quietly and over time. Eventually people stopped saying the gamer and started saying the driver. Jann Mardenborough was proving himself to be much more than just a marketing stunt, a mere flash in the pan. However, being first doesn't just mean proving you're fast. It means carrying what happens when the spotlight turns dark. March 2015 at the Nürburgring Nordschleife. During a VLN endurance race, Jann's GT3 car went airborne at Flugplatz. His car clattered the barrier, then vaulted the catch fencing into the spectator area. One spectator was tragically killed, with many more injured. The race was stopped and not restarted. This was a tragedy, a real death with real people and very real consequences. Jann was physically able to exit the car, but no driver truly walks away untouched from something like that. Years later, when the Gran Turismo film was being made, it was noted that Jann insisted the accident be included. Unfortunately, the way it was portrayed with an altered timeline devolved it to little more than a story beat. Hollywood is gonna Hollywood, I guess. But here's the question we should ask. What does that do to you? And how do you strap back into a car after something like that? And how do you crest a hill at 160 miles an hour again, knowing exactly what could happen? The crash had a profound emotional impact on Jann, but he didn't disappear, and he didn't become a footnote to motorsport's history. And motorsport quietly kept moving forward with new scrutiny, new safety conversations, and the same brutal truth endurance racing has always carried. You see, motorsport doesn't just test how fast you are. Sometimes it tests exactly how much weight you can carry. And here is where the story becomes bigger than Jann, because whether the motorsport purists liked it or not, the simulator kept producing fast people. And not just fast for gamers, legitimately real-world fast. Hopping forward to the present day, and the sport is openly building bridges. In 2025, Verstappen.com Racing announced a full GT World Challenge Europe program, and at the heart of it was something unthinkable a decade earlier: a deliberate pathway from sim racing into real-world GT3 competition. Chris Lullum, a Team Redline sim racing standout, was promoted into GT3 machinery, and Max Verstappen himself spoke openly about wanting to create that loop. One of the standout moments of that season was when Max himself teamed with Chris Lullum, comfortably swept to victory, claiming NLS9 and the Nürburgring Nordschleife. Viewership records were absolutely shattered that day. None of this really happened if Jann Mardenborough didn't exist. Not because he was perfect, but because he proved the idea was real. It was credible. He legitimized the idea of sim racers in race cars, and lap after lap, race after race, he changed opinions by showing he was fully deserving of his race seats. Now, I want to bring it back to the person, because endurance racing has a way of exposing who people really are. Imagine for yourself, it's 2 a.m, you're absolutely shattered, you've just finished a long stint. The easy thing is to vanish into the truck and disappear, but this is where, as an endurance fan, I've always respected Jann Mardenborough. I've personally watched races, Nürburgring Spa, where he gets out of the car and stays present. Enduro fans will know of his common late night visits to the commentary booth. Instead of sleeping it off or chilling until the next stint, he gets in with the guys and talks racing, talks about motorsport, track conditions, car setups. He just loves motorsport. I was fortunate enough to see Jann race live fairly recently, the Silverstone 500 in 2024. He returned to Team RJN and he was driving the McLaren 720S. He drove absolutely superbly with controlled aggression and clearly relishing the return to Silverstone after multiple years away. Late in the race, he has the lead and a victory looked on the cards. I remember me and my friend absolutely buzzing at the time. Then, as endurance racing often does, some late drama resulted in him being spun out. Endurance racing in a single moment. Even so, the result still delivered a class win and an overall podium after post-race penalties were applied. And that's the thing, isn't it? You can drive phenomenally and still have chaos taken away from you. I bloody love GT3 racing. And so this is why this story matters. Not because the internet was right or because a marketing concept worked. Motorsport was forced to confront a truth it had ignored for far too long. Speed does not care where you learned it. Long after the skepticism faded and after the headlines moved on, Jann Mardenborough was still there. And he's still there. Under the floodlights at 2 a.m, talking about tyre temperatures just like the rest of us. And maybe that's the real point of this story. Not the moment he proved them wrong, but the years he spent proving he belonged.